Hello, this is Tom from Star Frontiers Gamer Tabletop Taproom, and this is part 4 of our Star Frontiers Outpost 1 adventure options. The original video that I did was an hour long. I said way too long, cut it up. Basically, I'm re-recording the material, and we're doing this in-depth series on just adventure options involving Outpost 1, such an obscure little piece of the timeline that's only important during the Sathar War, but it has interesting ramifications for the setting. And we're going to cover those today. But before we get too deep, let's just say thanks for watching the video. Thanks to my subscribers. You guys are great. And don't forget that like, subscribe, and bell icon to help me build the channel. Moving right along. So this is our next entry in the timeline for this video. Let me enlarge it a little bit for the screen. And it says the flight is greatly increased with reinforcements. They previously got well chewed up in the Battle of the Blockade. This would be the blockade blockading Outpost 1, keeping more troop ships and supply ships from reaching the planet. And the fighting ships, the regular Navy ships, were driven off into space. So the flight's greatly increased. Wing 1, number 1, was the original flight. They rendezvous with Task Force Prengular. They're battered and weary, but they still insist on joining the siege for Outpost 1 with the UPF forces. This group of rim spacers quickly gained notoriety in the frontier and greatly enhanced UPF rim relations. They are known as the Raging Rimmers. There is a possibility that might be an unfortunate slang term nowadays that was not a slang term back in the 80s. But we won't go there. We will pretend we're older than 12 years old and move right along. Now, there's a couple of thoughts here. They're setting up this change in relations between the UPF and the Rim. I don't think it's necessary. They're trying to give a reason why the UPF suddenly likes the Rim. You know what? The Rim said, hey, if we don't help those guys fight the Sathar, next the Sathar will be in our home systems. And so they sent the flight to help us fight the Sathar. That was enough. You don't need them showing up and insisting we be a part of the siege because we're the Raging Rimmers and we're going to smash. No, the UPF is going to be like, thank you for your service and appreciative. So you don't need to worry about but there was this little bit of a focus, and they're setting up a reason why so many Rim citizens, from the species that inhabit the Rim, are now living in the frontier. They're setting this excuse up, and I think it's because Kim Eastland, when he wrote Zebulon's Guide, he wanted a more, I believe, Star Frontiers creature cantina type of thing. You walk into a spacer bar, it's Verse, Gazarians, Drolocytes, humans, Ifshnit, Asakar, Huma, and whatever have you. Saurians, Zethra bartenders, all sorts of things. I think that's what he was thinking, and that's the feel that he was going for. And I don't think it's necessary, because I think the UPF is like, thank you very much, appreciate your service. What I did not screenshot here was the rest of this outline point, which said that, so Wing 2 takes up a blockade position. Wing 3 is tasked with defense of the homeworlds. Task Force Cassadine sails for the Sathar solar miner, and the Sathar begin mining operations on the moons of Outpost 1. And again, we go back to that Ares 15 article on von Neumann machines. Tailor-made, perfect to be dropped on those moons and begin the mining operations. Absolutely a brilliant tie-in of old optional material, obscure, that we never possibly most of us never used. I've never used the von Neumann machines. So, well, I've thought about using them, but I don't think I actually ended up using them. So, Wing 1 can be a continuation of the previous coalition flight wing material that ended up doing the scouting probe. So that can be a continuation of that. You certainly have options here for more covert spec ops type missions for the player characters to be inserted onto the moons to try to sabotage one of those von Neumann machines, sabotage construction of defenses on a moon. You have options for coming up for out and out battle. You could have transfers of ships from different formations to Wing 1 or to Task Force Pringular. Plenty of things that you could do with this, but you certainly have options for battle here, space battles going on. The blockading force could be tested by a group of Sathar ships. You could certainly have that battle be played out. Lots of Nighthawk action possible. Moving on to the next timeline issue here is the Drolosites and Rim Coalition insist on diplomatic mission to be sent to Outpost 1. The Sathar agree to meet 3 months later to discuss a possible treaty. The Sathar discussing a treaty. That's not going to go well. Non-Sathar agents represent the Sathar. No Sathar show up to these peace negotiations. Isn't that interesting? The diplomatic talks are held for another 18 months with no results. During that time, the Sathar strengthen their defenses and repair their ships. The UPF land fleet is given time to become a formidable army. So this smells like, and I've been reading and thinking about the Korean War. This smells like North Korean diplomacy to me. Maybe there's a better real world analog that you can think of and suggest. Put it in the comments that stands out as this type of, because here's what happens. You've got these Sathar agents. These are people who've been hypnotized. They've been turned. They're completely controlled by the Sathar. So they come and do them. Well, we got to go back and check with our masters. And they go back and check with the Sathar. And then they come back with different suggestions and options and offers. And the Sathar use this. They just string it out so they can fortify better and repair their ships that they have in system. And it's disingenuous. It reads as disingenuous on the part of the Sathar. You don't need to play this out, but you could. It could be that there's a Star Law agent. You can pick up that espionage campaign with Star Law agents that were involved in that, are guarding the diplomats. I don't know. I don't think there's anything here to game. It's just people sitting down at a table talking. And, okay, there's nothing there to game really, unless somebody's got the psychosocial skill and with the communication sub skill and empathy sub skill and persuasion sub skill. Yeah, maybe it might be some skill checks, but otherwise there's no game here. So we move right along to preparations for the next event, which is the Battle of Five Fleets. The Battle of Five Fleets, I believe, is a nod of the head to Token, the Battle of Five Armies. And they detail this fleet, this fleet, this fleet, this fleet all come together and battle the Sathar. And so it's Task Force Pringular, Coalition Wing 1, Task Force Cassadine, and the remnants of Strike Force Nova versus the Sathar. 5 fleets, and they attack Outpost 1. This is not outer system blockade. This is taking the battle to the planet. And we learn that Outpost 1 is itself a mammoth world with 2 planet-sized moons. And I spoke about that in part 1, where I was talking about who are the inhabitants of this world, that you need a heavy grav world. You need to maybe go at least 1.5. And I say 1.5 because every 10th of a gravity point carries a penalty to the player character. And so you need a gravity that's the player characters can function in to some degree, but they're also going to need to bring exoskeletons, power armor, all sorts of stuff like that to the table for operations on Outpost 1. So you have this mammoth world, planet-sized moons. The moons, probably we could be talking 0.7G, 0.8G, 0.9G, maybe even 1G for one of them. Up to you. You get to decide. An entire year is spent destroying the remnants of Sathar, of the Sathar fleet, minefields orbiting the planet, small fighter squadrons that the Sathar capture in Solar Minor, and the lunar mining and defensive installations. Lost in the operation is the rest of Strike Force Nova, except for the battleship Quasar, half of Task Force Cassadine, and all but 2 destroyers from the Coalition Wing 1. That's an interesting comment that I don't know that I envisioned how big a ship we envisioned in the write-up, Frontier Explorer number 12, where we wrote up Zebulon's Guide to the Rim, and we talked about the flight and their order of battle, the kinds of ships. But this is an implication. They've got destroyer-sized ships in the flight. I think we had a principal workhorse fighting craft being a hull size 4. Springblade class something, if I remember right. But still, this is an interesting little data point that I hadn't really paid attention to before. There are destroyers in the wing's order of the flight's order of battle. So what do we do with this? Well, number one, you got a hellacious battle. I mean, this is the Nighthawks campaign. Big battle, multiple encounters to this, because you can go to, well, let me bring it up the image here. Star Frontiersman Volume 2, Issue 26. This is the first issue of Star Frontiersman Volume 2. And in here, major theme was minesweeping and mine laying, and you get a mine layer deck plan in here. So, because minefields are going to figure prominently, you should probably consult this, and bring in a mine laying ship for some minesweeping operations going on. And yeah, I think that's a distinct possibility. There could be raids on the moons, spec op teams inserting to the moons and going after defenses, going after those von Neumann machines we discussed from Ares 15. Absolutely. So there's a whole campaign of battle, just cleaning out the orbital defenses, and maybe even some surgical strikes on planetary defenses based on the planet. Now, the next big point here is that it specifies that there was a pincer move. The pincer move between fleets from Solar Major and Solar Minor. And on that point, we should go take a look at the map again. And so you have up here Solar Major, you have down here Solar Minor, and Outpost 1. Now, the interesting thing is if you draw between Outpost 1 up here, right at the edge of my video screen here, and then all the way down to Solar Minor, there we go, a straight line, you've got to thread the needle between 2 other star systems. So a pincer move of 2 fleets get moving at the same time and jump on doesn't really work so well. I don't know what you want to do with that, if you want to just change that. But this would certainly be the reason why these other systems in between here had to be scouted by the flight earlier in the timeline, which led to the discovery of Outpost 1 by Space Fleet and the flight. And the reason why I don't think you can jump straight from Solar Miner to Outpost 1 with these two systems sitting here is because I have speculated in the past that the nature of void space jumping ties into the gravity well of a star. And that's you plot the jump towards the star, and as you get close, I believe the gravity well pulls you in and pulls you out of void space. And the reason why I really believe this is because when you void jump, according to the rules, when you misjump, according to the rules, you will end up at a star within the jump radius that you were attempting, some random star. So instead of ending up the star you intended, you ended up some random star. You get pulled out of jump space, void jump space, by the gravity well of that star. You never end up in empty space. There's always a gravity well nearby that you land upon when you depart void space. I think that's an important thing. And I think that is part of the mechanism of void jumping. So if you were to void jump from Outpost 1 to Solar Miner directly, one of these planets, one of these stars, these systems would pull you out of void space. So that's why those had to be, and you're gonna, so Solar Miner would probably, the jump route would probably, the most direct would be to go to this other planet that's right here. Can you see that? There's another little planet out here to the southeast of Outpost 1. So you would jump there and then jump to Outpost 1. It'd just be two jumps instead of going through this system, then this system, and then Outpost 1, which would be three jumps. It's going to be very hard to coordinate that pincer movement. So that is a concern, something, they come up with an explanation for it. The heavy gravity planet, there's not going to be any Azarians gliding because you're over a 1G. So no gliding for Azarians, that's out. And I would also recommend anybody born on this planet, only people born on this planet, after you do your species ability score modifications, they get a plus 20 or maybe a plus 15 to their strength. Strength only. And that's only for people born on this planet because they're born on such a heavy grav world. Some sort of bonus to their strength to represent the fact that they were born here. Once you leave and you're born someplace else, once your people leave and you're born someplace else, you're back to the normal species ability score modifications. I would recommend that. Next up, we have 88 to 90, the Siege of Outpost 1. This is where Task Force Prengular is doing a close blockade of the planet. Presumably, there's still a picket force in the outer system that's a tripwire blockading in the outer system. Any ships coming in, they're there to intercept them. Land fleet is shuttled in under intense fire. This is D-Day. This is Normandy beaches in Star Frontiers. Land battles take over 2 years to complete. That's incorrect. It's 3 years because 88, 89, 90. At the end of hostilities, no Southar survive and land fleet suffers 40% casualties. Very high casualty rate. A significant portion of that will be landing on the planet under fire. It is the Normandy invasion, the D-Day invasion of Outpost 1. Among land fleet's casualties are 30% UPF citizens, non-UPF citizens. This is your, recruits from the Rim, your Ishnet, Osakar, and Huma, who have served the UPF during the war and remain in the UPF after mustering out. Again, he's trying to set up a situation where there are all the Rim races very prevalent in the UPF proper. I don't think it's necessary, but it's okay. One of the consequences of this will be that after Sathar War 1, 90% of all of the Rim species that you encounter in the frontier will be veterans. The logical consequence of this is that 90%, 85%, 90% will be veterans. So if you encounter a Huma running a bar, you can mark it down in your head. He probably was a veteran. He just settled here and started a business. That's what the situation is going to warrant after the Second Sathar War, based off of that. Also, you are actually setting up for this a whole ground war campaign, a little bit of a Band of Brothers type campaign, landing in Normandy on D-Day and then fighting their way through liberating concentration camps and liberating artifacts from the Eagle's Nest, Hitler's photograph album, that sort of thing. So you're definitely got a Band of Brothers or a Monuments Men type of campaign option going on here. Certainly the player characters could be a spec op team, not called the Monuments Men, because, Monuments Men, we're talking about thousands upon thousands upon thousands of artifacts stolen by the Nazis. And in this situation, it's just two super real important cultural artifacts that have been stolen by the Sathar. Those need to be recovered. But along the way, they're also going to encounter slave camps of citizens from Kirkut and Cersei. They're going to encounter stolen goods from solar miner system. So you've got a whole campaign, of a small team. You could run like a bigger team, a more Band of Brothers type of experience, but you could whole campaign, certainly a whole campaign possible just through this 3 years of battle on Outpost 1. Now, the last point, and I'm pushing it a little bit in length of video here, but just to wrap up the last point and not do another video. Well, actually, I do have another video coming. But Solar Miner is resettled, presumably with liberated prisoners from Outpost 1. Starlaw campaign. This is tailor-made for a Starlaw campaign. Those Starlaw agents that were trying to prevent the theft of culturally significant artifacts could be tasked to the Solar Miner system. They're going to be looking for Sathar agents that have gone under the wire. Because all these people are coming back. They've been exposed to the Sathar. There's great possibility for lots of Sathar agents within that population. So you can run a whole campaign post-Sathar War 2, and it's all about the reconstruction of the Solar Miner system. Lots of possibility there as well. So this was our 4th video in the series. We've wrapped up the timeline for Outpost 1. I want to go back and do a little bit more of an in-depth dive on that Greatest Yazarian Ale run meets Smokey and the Bandit meets Dramune run. So that will be the 5th video in this series, and we will wrap it up and move on. But again, thank you for watching. Thanks to my subscribers. You guys are great. And don't forget to keep on gaming, and I will see you in the frontier.